Nikon birthed the F5 in a world where the beginning wisps of the promise of digital photography made the thin lips of corporate leaders curl upward at the promise of future profits. But its roots started in a world where film photography was the only option, and 35mm film dominated the majority by huge margins of the photographic marketplace. The Nikon F5 fought the future like a pugilist while embracing the best of the computerized technologies and the wheels and the dials, screens and displays, and viewfinder and lights that would define generations of digital cameras. And so while the F5 fought the future, it also showed the world a hint, a faint glimpse, of what the future would be. The F5 roots reached deep through the F, F2, F3, and F4, the longest-running continuous camera model lineage in photographic history. These cameras represent a cross-section of the most gonzo, aspirational thinking Nikon would let its engineers have. The F5 was the most aspirational, least contained, highest-reaching camera in the F lineup. And what better DNA from which to build the Nikon digital camera lineage? This was the last Nikon film camera to feature a removable viewfinder prism, the first to use the button interface that would define their digitals. This was the last Nikon film camera with an integrated battery grip for 8 AA batteries. The first professional camera that could not take all of the Nikon lenses made previous to it straight out of the box. The last F without a screen on the back, and the first with the grip and feel and ergonomics that Nikon adopted wholesale afterwards. Most importantly, though, the F5 was the last Nikon camera that felt like a film camera, and the first Nikon camera that absolutely did not feel like a film camera. The Nikon F5 was engineered creatively, unleashed it seems by carte blanche permission for its designers to scrap what had been, ask what could be, and then question every subsequent idea. Nikon backed the F5's design with an incredibly strong specification set too. The fastest shutter speed at 1/8,000th of a second ties all the best cameras ever made bar one, the Minolta Alpha 9. The heavy reliance on dials and buttons gave the F5 a tactile feel that provided instant feedback to the photographer and let them know their fingers were placed correctly for the task at hand. And with a maximum frame rate of 8 frames per second, a feat beaten only by the Canon EOS 1V at its 10 frames per second, the Nikon F5 could move more than 300mm of film through the camera every second and tear through an entire roll of film in just more than 5 seconds. This camera had a higher frame rate than most of the digital cameras from any maker that would follow it for the next 15 years. And all of that from a highly complex, motor-driven, still significantly mechanical film SLR. The Nikon F5 became, from its start, the camera that, like a hulking skyscraper, casts its shadow on everything else around it. Yes, other cameras were prettier, or cheaper, or newer, or digital, but none of them, at all, were the F5, and almost none of them had any ability, in even tiny ways, to exhibit the creativity of thought and the forward-looking design that defined the entirety of the F5.